The mud was freezing to my boots when the sergeant yelled. The yell came again, a raw sound tearing through the cold. I flinched, my hands wrapped in gray rags slipped on the frozen earth of the foxhole wall. The Panzerfaust beside me was a cold, heavy promise I did not understand. Its weight was all I felt. The helmet slid forward again, the rim scraping my eyebrows. I pulled myself up. The sergeant was a dark shape against the gray-white forest, his breath blooming like a train.
Up! All of you. The line moves back to the farmhouse. Now!
We scrambled. My boots, 2 sizes too large, packed with newspaper, sank into the deep snow with a wet crunch. The cold was a sharp animal biting through the thin wool of my uniform tunic. We formed a ragged line. No one spoke. The only sounds were our breathing and the distant flat thump of artillery, like a giant's heartbeat. We shuffled through the shattered trees. My stomach was a hollow knot. I had not eaten since a thin slice of black bread the day before. The memory of it was a ghost in my mouth. The farmhouse appeared, a broken tooth in the landscape. Part of the roof was gone. Snow dusted the shattered furniture inside. We filed into the main room, our presence stirring the smell of old smoke, damp plaster, and something sour underneath.
You will hold this position. You are the shield of the fatherland. You will not yield.
He paced before the empty fireplace, his words hitting the walls and falling dead. I leaned my Panzerfaust against a broken chair. My arms trembled with relief. Then a new sound cut through the cold silence. Not artillery. A low, grinding growl from the road, growing louder. The sergeant's head snapped up. His eyes, wide, went to the window.
Americans? To the windows. Defensive positions.
Panic was a hot wire in my chest. I fumbled for the Panzerfaust, its weight suddenly impossible. Around me, the old men were cursing, lifting their rifles with slow, stiff movements. The growl became the distinct roar of an engine, then the squeal of brakes. A vehicle had stopped just outside. Through a crack in the shutter, I saw it. A green Jeep with a white star on its hood. 2 soldiers in long, thick coats jumped down. They moved with a purpose we had lost. One of them, a big man with a shadow of beard, looked directly at the house. He held a rifle, but it was slung over his shoulder. In his other hand was a small, dark tin. He said something to his companion. Then he started walking, not running, straight toward the farmhouse door. The door groaned open on broken hinges. A wedge of gray light cut across the filthy floorboards. The big American stood in the opening, a dark shape against the snow. The cold air rushed in, smelling of pine and gasoline. He filled the space.
Anyone in here?
His voice was deep, tired, not angry. He stepped inside, his boots heavy on the wood. The other soldier stayed by the Jeep, watching the tree line. I pressed myself into the corner behind the shattered stove. My heart hammered against my ribs. The coal scuttle helmet slipped forward again. I did not move to fix it.
I see you, son.
He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the empty tins, the blood-stained bandage in the corner. He sighed, a cloud of breath in the frigid air. He walked to the center of the room. He placed the dark tin on the remains of a table. With a slow, deliberate movement, he unslung his rifle and leaned it against the wall. The gesture felt enormous.
You understand English? Sprechen Sie English?
I stayed silent. My orders were clear. Surrender was treason. But my hands were empty. My rifle was gone, lost in the retreat. He knelt, bringing himself to my level. His coat was thick wool, crusted with ice at the cuffs. I could smell him. Tobacco, damp earth, and something clean like soap.
You're just a kid.
He said it softly, almost to himself. Then he pointed to the tin.
Food. You eat.
He used a small key attached to his dog tags to pry open the tin. The sound was a sharp pop. The smell hit me first. Rich, fatty, and possibly savory. My stomach clenched so hard it hurt. It was meat. Canned meat. I could see the pale fat, the pink flesh. He placed the open tin on the floor and slid it toward me with his boot. It scraped across the boards.
Go on.
This was the enemy. The monster from the newsreels. The faceless terror we were told would show no mercy. He had a kind face, lined with exhaustion. His eyes were the color of the winter sky. My hand shook as I reached for the tin. The metal was cold. The food inside was congealed, but it was food. I scooped a piece with my fingers. It was salty and greasy. I almost choked swallowing it.
Easy. Slow.
He watched me eat. He did not smile. His expression was one of a profound, weary sadness. Outside, the Jeep's engine idled, a low, impatient rumble.
War's over for you, kid.
He stood up, his knees cracking. He picked up his rifle, but he held it loosely, pointed at the floor. He looked at me one last time, then turned and walked out into the snow. The door did not close. The cold returned. But I held the tin, its weight solid and real in my hands. The world I knew, the one built on hate and fear, cracked open like ice under a boot. The cold came back first, a sharp breath through the open door. Then the sound of the Jeep's engine changed, from an idle to a growl as it drove away. I was alone. The empty farmhouse groaned in the wind. I looked at the tin in my hands. The smell of the beans and meat was still there, a rich, heavy scent that made my stomach twist. I forced myself to eat slowly. Each mouthful was a hot, salty shock. My hands shook. I had to wipe grease from my chin with the filthy sleeve of my tunic. I heard boots crunching in the snow outside. Not one pair. Many.
On your feet.
His voice was flat now. The sadness was gone, replaced by a tired command. He stood in the doorway, his silhouette blocking the gray light. I stood, the empty tin clattering to the floorboards. My helmet slipped over my eyes again. I pushed it back.
Move. To the truck.
Outside, the snow was blinding. An American truck, its engine smoking, was parked where the Jeep had been. Other soldiers stood around it, their faces hard and closed. They looked at me, then looked away. One of them gestured with his rifle. The motion was not angry, just efficient. Go. I walked. The weight of my own useless gear, the empty rifle sling, felt like a shame. I passed a soldier leaning against the truck's fender. He was young, maybe 18 years.
Just a kid.
He said it to no one. The young soldier by the fender spat into the snow. He's old enough to pull a trigger. The sergeant didn't answer. He walked to the cab of the truck. The tailgate slammed shut behind me. The canvas canopy smelled of oil and wet wool. The truck jerked into motion. I held onto the wooden bench as we bounced over the frozen ruts. Through the open back, I watched the shattered farmhouse grow smaller. The foxhole line where we had waited was just a scar in the white field now. I thought of Klaus. We had dug that hole together 2 days ago, our fingers numb and bleeding. We had shared a single frozen potato. The memory was a physical pain, a hole in my chest where the food now sat, heavy and wrong. The world had not just cracked. It had fallen away entirely, leaving me here in the belly of the enemy's truck, alone. The sergeant's words echoed in the roar of the engine. War's over for you. But as the forest swallowed the last sign of my war, I knew it wasn't true. A different war was just beginning. A silent one inside me, and I had no idea how to fight it. The truck stopped. The engine's roar cut off, leaving a ringing silence in my ears. The canvas flap at the back was thrown open. Cold, clean air rushed in, scented with pine and wet wool. It stung my nostrils after the truck's oily fumes.
Out. All of you.
We stumbled into a clearing. Snow lay thick on the ground. A shell-shattered farmhouse stood to one side, its roof gone. American soldiers in heavy coats moved with purpose. They did not look at us. I was shoved into a line with other prisoners. My helmet slipped, and I pushed it back. The weight of the empty rifle slung on my shoulder was a cruel joke.
You.
Sergeant Kowalski stood before me. His face was hard, etched with tired lines. He held a metal cup. Steam rose from it into the cold air.
Take it.
I stared. My hands, tucked under my arms for warmth, did not move. This was a trick. It had to be.
It's just stew. Take the damn cup before I drop it.
My fingers, clumsy and numb, closed around the warm metal. The heat was a shock. The smell hit me next. A rich, heavy scent of meat and beans. My stomach clenched like a fist. I looked from the cup to his face. His eyes were not the eyes of the monster from the propaganda posters. They were the color of the winter sky, and just as distant. He was just a man, a tired man.
Eat. You look like you haven't seen food in a week.
I brought the cup to my lips. The first taste was a scalding, glorious pain. It was salt and fat and life itself. I had to force myself not to gulp it down. He watched me, his arms crossed. The other guards watched the tree line.
How old are you, son?
The word son struck me harder than the cold. My voice was a dry rasp. 14.
Hell.
He said it softly, almost to himself. He shook his head, looking past me at the shattered woods.
I got a boy back in Ohio. He's 12.
He fell silent. The truth of his words hung between us in the frozen air. He was not facing a fanatical Nazi. He was looking at a child, a scared, hungry child. The last of the stew was gone. The warmth in my belly felt alien. It was the first kindness I had known in months, and it came from the enemy. The world I knew, the one of hate and fear, did not just crack, it dissolved, right there in that snow-filled clearing. He took the empty cup from my trembling, his accent.
War's over for you. Remember that.
But as he walked away, his boots crunching in the snow, I knew a different war had just begun. It was silent, and it was inside me, and I had no weapon to fight it with. I followed the sound of the Jeep engine. It was a low, steady growl against the quiet of the pines. They led me to the farmhouse. The roof was gone. Snow dusted the broken furniture inside. The walls were more holes than wood. Sergeant Kowalski pointed to a corner where the floor was still dry.
Sit. Stay put.
I sat the cold from the stone floor seeped through my thin uniform trousers. I clutched my rifle across my knees. It felt like a toy now. He walked away. I heard him speaking to another man outside. The words were sharp and quick. I did not understand them. I waited, my breath made clouds in the air. The smell of the stew was still in my nose. A ghost of warmth and onions. Sergeant Kowalski came back inside. He carried a small green box with a white cross on it.
Give me your hands.
I did not move. I stared at the box.
Your hands. Son, they're frozen.
Slowly, I let go of the rifle. I held out my hands. They were cracked and bleeding, the skin blue and swollen. He opened the box. The smell hit me first. Sharp and clean, like alcohol and something else. Medicine. He took out a small tin. He unscrewed the lid. The grease inside was white. He scooped some out with 2 fingers. His touch was not gentle, but it was careful. He rubbed the grease into my cracked knuckles. The pain was a bright, shocking heat.
Hold still. This'll keep the rot out.
He worked in silence. The only sound was the wind through the shattered beams above us. He treated both my hands. Then he looked at my face.
You got any other hurts?
I shook my head. I could not speak. This care was a weapon I did not know how to defend against. He nodded. He closed the medical box. He stood up, his knees cracking. He looked down at me for a long moment.
They'll come for you soon. A truck. You understand? Truck.
I understood the word. I nodded again.
Don't do anything stupid. The war's over for you. Remember.
He turned and walked out of the broken house. I was alone with the smell of medicine on my hands and the weight of the words in my head. The war was over. But I was still here in the ruins waiting for the truck to come. Boots crunched on the frozen snow outside the broken wall. Heavy, slow steps. Not the quick, purposeful stride of Sergeant Kowalski. I pressed my back against the cold stone of the fireplace. My hands were empty. My rifle was gone. I had only the oversized uniform and the helmet that slipped over my eyes. A shadow filled the doorway. Taller, broader than the sergeant. The silhouette of a helmet, the long barrel of a rifle held across his chest. He stepped inside. Snow fell from his boots in wet clumps. He saw me. The rifle came up, smooth and practiced. The muzzle was a black circle aimed at my chest. I stopped breathing. I waited for the flash, the noise. My body went rigid. This was it. The faceless enemy, the monster.
Easy, Miller. Stand down.
The new soldier's head turned slightly. The rifle did not move.
I said stand down. Look at him.
The rifle muzzle lowered just an inch. The soldier's eyes, pale in the gray light, scanned me. They went from my helmet, down the filthy tunic that hung on my frame like a sack, to my bare blue-tinged ankles above my boots. He let out a long breath. It steamed in the air. He slung his rifle over his shoulder.
Kid's done. War's over for him. Truck's coming.
The new soldier, Miller, just stared. His face was young but tired, etched with dirt and stubble. He didn't look like a monster. He looked cold. He reached a hand into the deep pocket of his field jacket. My heart hammered, but his hand came out holding a small wax paper packet.
Miller.
Miller ignored him. He stepped closer. He held the packet out to me, flat on his palm. It was a hard, brown rectangle. I didn't move. I didn't understand. He made a breaking motion with his hands, then pointed at his mouth. He pushed his hand closer. I took it. The wax paper was smooth. I fumbled with it, my fingers numb. I tore it open. The smell hit me first. Sweet, like burned sugar and peanuts. A rich, dense smell that made my stomach clench, with a pain sharper than hunger. It was a bar of chocolate. American chocolate. I looked from the bar to his face. He gave a single, slow nod. His eyes held no hatred. Only a deep, weary sadness. I broke off a piece. I put it in my mouth. The flavor was overwhelming. It was not food. It was a truth. This enemy, this man, had given me a piece of his own rations. The world I knew, the world of faceless monsters and fanatical sacrifice, cracked like thin ice under that simple, sweet weight. It shattered completely.
Truck's here. Let's go.
Miller turned and walked out, his boots heavy on the floorboards. I stood there, the chocolate melting on my tongue, listening to the growl of an engine coming closer. The engine sound grew to a roar outside the broken wall. Headlights cut white bars through the dark room, catching the swirling dust. Sergeant Kowalski stood in the doorway, a black shape against the light. He turned his head to look at me.
You. Come.
His voice was flat, a command. I swallowed the last of the chocolate. My mouth was still sweet. I moved toward the light, my own boots scuffing on the broken wood. The cold air outside hit me like a slap. It smelled of snow and diesel exhaust. A canvas-topped truck idled in the farmyard, its engine chugging. 2 other American soldiers stood by the tailgate. They watched me approach.
In the back.
He gestured with his rifle. The tailgate was down. I climbed up, the metal cold even through my thin trousers. The truck bed was empty except for some empty crates. One of the soldiers swung the tailgate shut with a loud clang of metal. The sound was final. The engine noise changed, growing deeper. The truck lurched forward. I grabbed the side of the bed to keep from falling. We moved down a narrow track through the trees. The headlights showed only snow and the trunks of black pines. The cold bit through my uniform. I pulled my knees to my chest. The chocolate was a warm memory inside me. I looked at the back of Sergeant Kowalski's helmet where he sat in the cab. He had not looked at me again. The ride was long and rough. The truck bounced over ruts. My teeth chattered. I tried to think of nothing, to be empty like the crates. Then the truck slowed. It turned, and the trees fell away. We entered a wide field of trampled snow dotted with tents and rows of parked vehicles. Lights glowed from lanterns. The truck stopped near a large tent with its flaps tied open. A stovepipe stuck out of the top, leaking thin smoke that carried the smell of cooking meat. My stomach cramped. It was a deep, animal pain.
Out.
The tailgate dropped. I climbed down, my legs stiff. Sergeant Kowalski stood waiting. He pointed with his chin toward the tent.
Mess line. You get 1 plate. You eat it there. You do not speak. You look at no one.
He stared at me, his eyes hard in the lantern light. This was the rule, the guard and the prisoner, the order of things. But I could still taste the chocolate, the kindness that broke the rule. I nodded. I understood the words he did not say. This was a test. A new world with its own walls.
Move.
I walked toward the smell of food. The smell hit me first. It was not a single smell, but a world of them. The sharp, greasy scent of frying fat. The dense, warm cloud of boiled potatoes. A meaty steam that made my stomach clench like a fist. It was a physical force, pulling me forward. My legs moved on their own. The snow crunched under my boots. Men stood in a loose line, tin plates in their hands, their breath fogging in the cold air. They were Americans. Their uniforms were dirty, but they looked solid. Well-fed, real soldiers. I kept my eyes on the ground, as the sergeant had ordered. The helmet slipped again, and I pushed it back with a numb hand. My own uniform was a sack of frozen cloth. A cook with a stained apron ladled stew from a large pot into a mess tin shoved into my hands. The weight of it, hot and full, was a shock. I had not held so much food in months.
There. Sit.
He pointed his rifle barrel toward an empty crate away from the others. I walked to it, the heat of the plate burning through my gloves. I sat. The crate was cold and wet. I looked at the food. Chunks of gray meat swam in the thick brown gravy next to pale lumps of potato. My hand shook. I brought a spoonful to my mouth. The taste was overwhelming. Salt, fat. A richness that was almost painful. I ate without chewing, shoveling it in, afraid it would vanish. My eyes watered. I felt their stares on my back, the enemy soldiers. I was the monster they had been sent to kill, a fanatic in a child's body. I kept my head down. When the plate was empty, I licked it clean. The tin was warm against my cheek.
Up.
He was beside me again. His face was unreadable in the fading light. He took the empty plate from my hands. He did not touch me. He just jerked his head toward 2 jeeps parked near the shattered farmhouse. Other boys in oversized uniforms were being loaded into the back. Their faces were hollow, like mine.
Go on. With them.
I took a step, then stopped. I turned back to look at him. The sergeant, the man who had given me chocolate, and then a plate of food. The enemy. He was not looking at me. He was already turning away, his shoulders set, walking back toward the line of foxholes in the trees, back into the war. His job with me was done. A hand pushed me toward the jeep. I climbed in with the others. The engine coughed to life, a loud, grinding sound in the silent forest. As the jeep bounced down the track, I put my tongue to the roof of my mouth. A last, faint sweetness lingered there from the chocolate. A tiny, impossible piece of peace. He had not seen a Nazi. He had seen a hungry child. And in that simple act of seeing, the world they had built for me broke into pieces and fell silently into the snow. 50 years later, I can still feel the cold of that cellar air and see the way his hand trembled as he lowered the pistol. It was not the grand gesture of a hero, but the quiet, desperate choice of a man who could no longer bear the weight of the lie he was told to carry. That moment taught me that the most radical act is to see the person in front of you, not the idea they are supposed to represent, to acknowledge their hunger, their fear, their exhaustion. I've carried that lesson through my life, as a father, a teacher, a neighbor. It is a quiet vigilance. You look and you see and you remember. That is why we remember. Please subscribe to help us keep these stories alive. The characters, incidents, and dialogue in this video are dramatized for narrative and entertainment effect. While some events may be inspired by real-life themes, this story is a work of fiction.